In October 1915, a ship called the Endurance was slowly being crushed by Antarctic pack ice hundreds of miles from any hope of rescue. Its captain, Ernest Shackleton, had spent years and a great deal of other people's money organizing an expedition with a single, specific goal: to be the first team to cross Antarctica on foot. Watching his ship die around him, Shackleton made a decision that is still studied today, not primarily for what he did next, but for the specific mental move that preceded it. He didn't ask how to save the crossing. He asked what would need to be true for every one of his men to survive, and worked backward from there. The original goal, the entire reason the expedition existed, was abandoned within days, not months. This documentary is going to investigate that mental move specifically, because it turns out to be one of the most powerful and most consistently underused tools available for making decisions under pressure. And most people who could name it have never actually practiced using it. The move is called inversion, and its logic is simple enough to state in one sentence. Instead of asking how to succeed, ask what would guarantee failure, and work to avoid that instead. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but the reason it's powerful isn't the sentence itself. It's what the sentence forces a mind to stop doing. Under pressure, human thinking tends to narrow around the original goal, spending enormous effort trying to rescue a plan that has already stopped being viable, precisely because abandoning it feels like admitting the entire effort was wasted. Shackleton's inversion didn't ask, "How do we still cross Antarctica?" It asked, "What does a version of this story look like where everyone dies?" and then organized every subsequent decision. Abandoning the ship, marching across the ice, the small boat journey to South Georgia, around avoiding that version specifically. Every man on that expedition survived. The crossing never happened. Historically, the second fact is barely remembered. The first fact is why the expedition is still studied. The mathematician Carl Jacobi is often credited with a version of this same principle centuries before Shackleton's expedition, reportedly advising students stuck on a difficult problem to try inverting it, restating what you're trying to prove as its opposite, and working from there. The investor and businessman Charlie Munger later popularized a version of this same idea for decision-making generally, summarized in his own words as invert, always invert, arguing that many of life's hardest problems are easier solved backward than forward. What connects a 19th century mathematician, a stranded Antarctic explorer, and a modern investor is not coincidence. It's that inversion solves a specific, recurring failure of forward-only thinking. When a goal is complex enough, there are countless ways to succeed and comparatively few, sharply definable ways to fail, which makes failure often easier to reason about clearly than success. This same pattern shows up in a completely different, much more modern context. Amazon is well known for a specific internal practice, sometimes called working backwards, in which teams are required to write the press release and frequently asked questions for a product before writing a single line of code or committing meaningful resources to build it. The stated purpose isn't marketing. It's forcing the team to confront, in concrete written language, whether the described product would actually be something a customer wants. Before the sunk cost of building, it makes an honest answer expensive to give. Notice the shared structure. Rather than starting from the current plan and pushing forward, the exercise starts from an imagined future state, success or failure made concrete, and works backward to expose whether the current plan actually gets there. Amazon's engineers and Shackleton's crew were solving structurally identical problems using the same reversed direction of reasoning, a century and an ocean apart. It's worth being precise about why this works, rather than treating it as a motivational slogan. Behavioral research on decision-making under uncertainty including foundational work by psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, has repeatedly found that people evaluate a possible loss more vividly and more carefully than an equivalent possible gain, a pattern known as loss aversion. Inversion works partly because it deliberately routes a decision through that sharper, more careful, evaluative channel. Asking, "How might this succeed?" invites optimism, momentum, and often an underestimation of risk. Asking, "How might this fail?" invites exactly the kind of careful, loss-focused scrutiny the human mind is already naturally better at applying, simply pointed at the plan on purpose, instead of only in hindsight, after the failure has already happened. There's a further layer worth adding, because the pattern shows up even in domains that look nothing like exploration or product design. Consider medical diagnosis. Physicians are increasingly trained in a practice sometimes described as considering the worst-case diagnosis first, deliberately asking what the most dangerous possible explanation for a set of symptoms would be, and ruling it out explicitly before settling on a more likely but less severe explanation. This isn't pessimism for its own sake. It's the same inversion logic applied to a life or death domain. The cost of missing a rare but catastrophic diagnosis is so much higher than the cost of briefly considering and ruling it out, that starting from the failure case, rather than the most probable case, produces better outcomes on average, even though it feels, in the moment, like dwelling on an unlikely worst case rather than efficiently pursuing the likely answer. It's also worth being honest about where inversion has limits, because a first principles investigation shouldn't oversell its own tool. Inversion works best when failure is genuinely definable in advance, and the stakes are high enough to justify the discomfort of confronting it directly. It works less well for decisions where failure is vague, slow-moving, or genuinely unknowable in advance, no matter how carefully someone tries to imagine it. Shackleton could define failure with total clarity, his men not surviving. Many everyday decisions, which job to take, which strategy to pursue over a period of years, don't offer that same clean, binary failure state to invert against. And forcing an artificially specific worst case onto a genuinely ambiguous situation can produce false confidence rather than genuine clarity. The tool is powerful, specifically where it fits, not universally. This raises the real question underneath the entire investigation. If this move is this simple, and this well documented across mathematics, exploration, and modern business, why do so few people actually use it under pressure, in their own decisions, in the moment it would matter most? The honest answer is that inversion is easy to describe and uncomfortable to practice, because it requires deliberately imagining and sitting with a specific failure scenario, right at the moment when every instinct is oriented toward the goal instead. Reading about Shackleton's decision is comfortable. Sitting down mid-crisis and forcing yourself to write out precisely what the worst outcome of your current plan looks like, in specific enough detail to actually plan against it, is not comfortable at all, which is exactly why it's rare, and exactly why the people who do it under real pressure are the ones later studied for it. There's a practical version of this worth naming directly, because the goal here isn't just admiration for a historical decision, it's a repeatable method. Facing a genuinely difficult decision, the useful move isn't to ask more forcefully, "How do I make this work?" It's to write down, as specifically as possible, what a clear failure of the current plan would actually look like, in concrete terms rather than a vague feeling of things going badly, and then ask which of the decisions available right now would most directly prevent that specific failure. This is a narrower, more answerable question than "How do I succeed?" precisely because failure states tend to be fewer and more specific than the many possible paths to success, which is the same reason It was easier for Amazon's teams to identify a product nobody would want than to guarantee one everybody would. And easier for Shackleton to define what losing every man looked like than to redesign an entire crossing of Antarctica on the fly. So here's the hidden principle this investigation reveals. The fastest route to a good decision under real pressure is rarely to think harder about how to succeed. It's to think clearly, specifically, and uncomfortably about what failure actually looks like. Because human judgment is naturally sharper when evaluating a loss than when evaluating a gain. And reversing the direction of a hard question is often what makes it answerable at all. Shackleton didn't save his crew by becoming a better explorer in that moment. He saved them by asking a different, more answerable question than the one the expedition had been organized around, and then simply refusing to let the original goal keep dictating decisions once the honest answer to that question had changed.
The uncomfortable part of this principle is also the useful part. Most people, standing where Shackleton stood, would have spent precious days searching for a way to still complete the crossing, because abandoning the goal feels like admitting defeat, while inverting the question feels wrongly like giving up before you've truly tried. The evidence points the other way. Trying harder at the original question, once the situation has already changed, is not persistence. It's a refusal to ask the one question that would actually reveal what to do next.